Well, I often get accused of never saying I'm wrong, but I would say I was wrong. I came into this episode kind of bleak. I will say my first episode review was a little brutal and harsh because I just wasn't very impressed. I am glad they are acknowledging the jihad, the Butlerian episodes, and things like that. We're getting more of the myth making history. However, it's very iffy what they set up in episode one. That said, I cannot deny that they did a lot with episode two to restore your faith in the prospects of the show. Now, they have a small season, it's only 6 episodes, but they did a lot with episode two. I mean, they did a lot. Now, were there some big problems? Yes. Visually, some of the visual effects were laughable. They were really bad. They were Craven bad. They were Madame Web bad. I'm like, wow, that looked really terrible. And some of the dialogue was janky, creepy, and stupid, and was like, huh? And these are good actors, but there were some really poor acting choices here and there. That said, this is not a negative review. I am mostly optimistic because, and I will say it, Desmond Hart did a lot. He did a lot with his presence. Even his dialogue was not too strong, but it was very powerful and effective. So what happened? Well, from last episode, and this is no spoilers, a major tragedy and death happened, and we're dealing with the consequences of it. And I'll be honest, the storyline there was not too strong. However, things got strong with Desmond and his mystery. So apparently, the story is Desmond has some kind of weird powers. It's weird to say powers in the Dune universe. This is not the MCU. It's not DC. But he has certain abilities, and his story is he was swallowed by a sandworm but survived and given a gift, and he serves the Imperium. Hmm. And there we are. But the acting and really the camera work, as well as several other things, made him a lot more impressive figure. So he did a lot for this episode in terms of really carrying the story. However, I do think the main plot is a bad choice. We're essentially getting an insider look at the Bene Gesserit and how the Sisterhood is facing these challenges and will survive. Well, the problem, of course, is that the Sisterhood are, well, mostly evil people. So whether they survive, we don't care. We're not invested in their struggle. I mean, it's an interesting question if Frank Herbert made a mistake focusing on Paul and his struggles. However, I do think the first novel is one of the best things you'll ever read. It's an incredible, incredible novel. And he pulls a huge twist with Dune Messiah, which I will not give away, although I do think he gave big hints with the first novel. But this is an apples and oranges situation. So Val, who is one of the head of the Sisterhood, I like the actress, but really, it's like not clear why we should care. So it's like, well, the sisters are in trouble, right? I should care because, and the other characters aren't doing too good job either, getting me invested because the Emperor's like, I'm suffering. I have a crisis. I have an imperial crisis. So you do, and I like Mark Strong, but him just making a weepy face is not sufficient. So it is a weird thing that there are moments of incredible beauty. They did a really good job with many visual effects and the environment and most of the episode. But there were whole scenes that were just laughable, stupid, pointless, and didn't really have an impact. Like Dune is a series where you can have a lot of steamy sex and a lot of violence. That's totally natural to this universe, but it did feel like they have a Game of Thrones kind of burden. Like they were given a quota saying, okay, we want this sex scene, we want this violent scene, we want two and a half every 20 minutes or so. And I have no issue with seeing, naked women or a lot of blood or a lot of death or murder. It just feels very sensationalistic. Like George Martin and Frank Herbert were careful when people died or got killed or even sex scenes. It's not just there for like, oh my, we want to see the sex. No, there was a point to it. And here it's I don't know, it just didn't feel very well structured for the most part. And the end I thought was not very well constructed. That said, like I said, Desmond and his story is very fascinating. It does have a very powerful moment at the very, very end. Not the final scenes, but the final scene was very powerful and effective with him and Val. However, I also have to rank the bad parts of the episode. So it was more good than bad. I said before that they did enough to intrigue me as a teaser, kind of. However, here I would say I was wrong. They're doing a lot to make you interested in the story. However, there are big parts of it that who cares? Like, who cares if that's a thing? And if you are diehard into the mythology, like, I am really not sure how powerful these witches are. Like, the voice in some places, it's insanely powerful. I'm not going to give away a twist, but that plays a role in the twist at the end. But I'm like, I don't think you can do that with the voice. But apparently you can do that with the voice. I'm like, that brings up a lot of alarming questions. So a very mixed bag, but this mixed bag is very positive for the most part. So I will give this a 7.25. I know that seems low because, again, there were too many weak moments. But again, strong moments visually and musically. The problem is, even the music like was really good at the end, right? It's literally the later half of the episode that things really get really strong and really powerful. But there were just too many laughable places that I was just like, that was not a good idea. And the dialogue, especially, and I will give James Hancock a lot of credit here. Yeah, it sounded a little too much like us. Like Frank Herbert has a very distinct language. They aren't really picking up on it. They're making it sound like us. Now, granted, Game of Thrones did the same thing. Even George does that in the novels. He will slip up, and they sound a little bit too modern. It is what it is. However, George and Frank are great writers, so they give you a good structure. The problem is, it doesn't have yet the Game of Thrones good structure that Benioff and Weiss had at the beginning of Game of Thrones. Here, it still feels like they're searching for the structure, and it shows. They're really searching for what to do next, and so you will just have scenes that just play out, but really there was no point to it. Some of them were very visually beautiful. I'll give them that. But some of them were just like, wait, that's not a good twist. That's not a good revelation. I mean, it's sort of like, that was it. That was the big secret. It was solved way too easily. Was this an entertaining episode? Absolutely. I was entertained for the most part. It was very, very entertaining. However, it was entertaining in the bad way that there were moments through the dialogue or the acting, I was just laughing. It was just laugh out crazy. I enjoyed laughing at it, but I don't think that was the intention. So, yeah, that was not good. However, it was entertaining in a good way that it was properly scary, properly forbidding, and you felt invested in the characters. But that said, at this point, I barely remember most of these characters. I know Val, I know Raquella. Yeah, I don't even care. So Desmond is doing a lot, and the Emperor is potentially very intriguing in this version of Dune. However, I do think they don't quite know what to do yet, and it does come off like a weak echo of the movies. And I have my own issue with the movies, but Denis has a great style. Here, it feels like they have a good style, but they're still searching for what the story is, at least with these first couple episodes. Now, maybe I'll be wrong, and it'll start to get really structured and really interesting, but so far, I'm interested, but interested with caution. So 7.25. I am interested where they're going to go next, but they need to do things a lot better in a few places. But overall, it is getting better and better. And I did have a lot of pessimism at first. So there we are.